Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural episode of the Pathfinders podcast, hosted on my Tree0311's Twitch. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this overlay that Nazeris helped me create. And I'm joined by Nazeris over here on my left. You can see him with his massive skull exploding migraine that has left him crippled and unable to participate this evening. But he is with us in spirit, and hopefully he will be feeling better soon. How is my mic volume? If someone can leave me a comment in chat just to let me know if the volume on my mic is okay. I was not able to test it while I was finishing the last of these notes. But you will see me looking off to the right a bunch because that is where OBS is on my secondary screen, and then I have all my notes right here in front of me in the center. But yeah, it's good to be back, even though I'm without Nazeris, who, like I said in the announcement description, he not only is he dealing with, I want to say he has Spectrum where he lives, but Spectrum is a little louder on the chat. Okay, we're going to go all the way up to here. All right. How's that sound? Let me know. Give me some feedback, everybody. But yeah, so Nazeris, not only is his internet service provider giving him the runaround, if you watch the last few episodes, we were having a bunch of technical difficulties because his upload bandwidth is either his bandwidth was really struggling or he was having a lot of interruptions in his upload. And so it's causing a whole bunch of issues, especially with the way we've set it up. Let's see, drop the gain slightly. I have a little distortion. All right, I dropped the gain a tick. And we'll adjust the volume a little bit. Let me know if that sounds any better. And I'm just going to have to play around with the sound, maybe watching it afterwards. Blizzrad, you said it's much better now. Okay. Yeah, I adjusted on the microphone because I've got a gain, a knob that does a couple of things, and one of them does the gain. And so if I have the gain turned down, I guess it's a lot less distorted. I just have to make sure the volume is up loud enough to go with it. All these different terms, learning all these things is so far over my shiny bald head. Oh my goodness, you have no idea. Yeah, I know medicine. I'm very, very one-dimensional. That's all that I do. So yeah, bear with me. But yeah, Nazeris is having huge issues with his internet, and so the plan for tonight was I was going to host it on my channel, and because I don't seem to have any issues with my bandwidth up or down. And that way we could just pipe his video and audio feed into mine, and I could do the upload, and I would record it, and then we could post it for later. And so we spent like almost 4 hours this morning setting up the overlay on my OBS, getting everything piped in. And as you can see, like I think it looks pretty decent. And I'd been working on that little the waiting room video all weekend. I slowly learning all this stuff on Adobe as well. So capturing that video and then timing it to the music that I got a subscription to some what's it called, royalty free music and sound bites. So I was playing with that because I wanted something that was going to be Pathfinders themed, and we always talk about the things being nebulous. And I was like, okay, I need to find clips, that have a nebula, or in our case for Star Citizen, the gas clouds. And so I wanted to show off some of that and, charting the path, through the nebulous information. Well, what better way to chart the path than clips of the Carrack flying through the gas clouds? So I got that, and I found some sort of dramatic music to go with it, and I played around with it. I kind of like it. But then the transition, and Nazeris helped me set up all the overlay stuff. I'm going to have to play with my camera some. I'm looking at it right now, and I had it with just my my office in the background, and I didn't like that because my office is a mess. but I also don't like it with just the bright color behind me. So I'm going to have to get an image in there on top of the color for the border, so that way it looks the way it's supposed to. Blizzrad, thank you very much. I appreciate that, buddy. Thanks again for joining me this evening. But yeah, so after all that work, between Nazarus, trying to be patient with me and my very limited abilities in doing all this stuff, and then dealing with, he's been dealing with his internet service provider for weeks now, and he can't stream at all because he streams Star Citizen and Space Engineers as well, and it's just not working, either Twitch or YouTube. And so it's been really frustrating for him. And so he's putting streaming on hiatus, and but then dealing with me setting up the OBS stuff just pushed him over the edge, and now he's got a crippling migraine. So hence the migraine image where he should be, and hopefully he'll be back next week. We are working on getting a guest for next week because next Monday I will be at work. So yeah, that's what we do. I have a weird work schedule. It's a rotating work schedule, 4 days on, 12 days off. So some Mondays I'm here, other occasionally, basically one in every third or fourth Monday, I'm unavailable because I'm at work and can't stream at work doing what I do, unfortunately. But yeah, so for the tonight's episode, it's just going to be me, and I'm going to be I'm recording right now, and so I will have Nazarus help me with the editing, the recording, and getting it up onto his YouTube where we host it normally. But because we're doing this live, I'll be engaging with you guys in chat, and we've got a bunch of guests in here. So I want to say thank you guys for joining me live. And please, any questions you have or any comments, I want to hear them. I want to see them. I love the conversation and I like the feedback. Makeneer and Pumpkin Fury just followed me. Another highlight of this last weekend is I live in Boise, Idaho, and the small city of Boise, Idaho, we just had our very first Star Citizen event, which was a ton of fun. And we're hoping to do some more, whether we do it in public, going out, meeting up, or we are hoping to meet up at Pumpkin Fury's house. Apparently, he's got a great big one of those garages that's like meant for a fifth wheel or a big trailer, and he's turning it into his game room. And so we're gonna, the plan is to hang out and have beverages and do LAN party type stuff or board games. So this last Star Citizen, we met at a big gaming, what would you call that? Like a game house? Anyway, it's where they do board games, they do tabletop and role playing stuff, and so they have a big selection of games to buy in store. But then they have it's like it was in a gym before, because like the very big room in the back is actually a basketball court. Like it's still the wood flooring and everything, but they've just got this place filled with tables for people to bring in board games. They had a whole bunch of terrain stuff that you could use for whether you're doing tabletop or role-playing games. They had all that stuff set up. So there's 5-6 of us that met up, and we played some Star Wars The Outer Rim. If you haven't played that board game, it is a ton of fun. There's a whole lot of elements within it that are very Star Citizen-esque, which is why I really enjoy it. And so if you haven't played that, I highly recommend it. If you're here because you're into Star Citizen, obviously, that's kind of all that I do, then I really, I can't recommend that game enough. And they actually just released the expansion pack for it. It's called Unfinished Business. So yeah, we were playing that, and I just took order of, or I just received last month a game that I had kickstarted that is like Outer Rim. Has a lot of Star Citizen-esque elements on it, much more exploration oriented, but it's called Stars of Akarios, Akarios. And so I haven't even gotten to play it. I unboxed it and that's it. And I didn't have anybody to play it with, but I had to have it. So we're hoping to play that as well soon. Actually, I've got the game map right here. Give me one sec. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, it's whenever I buy a game like that, and if they offer the what is that, neoprene? Is that what that stuff's made of? Gosh, I can't remember. But whenever they offer those game mats for setting it up on, I always buy those. I gotta have it. And I'll grab the other two boxes. I'll show those real quick. Oh God, it's heavy. Ugh. Stars of Ikarios. But look how big this dang box is. Thick. That's a thick board game. Thick. But yeah, the packaging and attention to detail. Yeah, it's super impressive. They've got a very active Discord that I'm in. I've watched a bunch of videos of people playing, so I'm super looking forward to it. Looking forward to playing. But yeah, there's so much cool stuff in here, and like 50 plus hour campaign. 50 plus hour campaign. Yeah, all sorts of cool stuff in here. There's 19 miniatures in this. And then you have all your pilot, your player character and ship tiles. So there's I'll read the description, and I'm just going over this stuff just because I'm super excited about it before we get into the Star Citizen stuff. But Stars of Ikarios is a narrative-driven, cooperative game for 1 to 4 players set in the Ikarios galaxy. A typical session of play will start as players interact with the galaxy map and scout their next scenario as part of space exploration. This scenario may result in space combat, world exploration, or discovering more about the galaxy. Players will progress in the story of Stars of Ikarios as they explore and venture further across the galaxy. The story is a sprawling narrative with opportunities for players to choose how to shape the story. Players will meet many memorable characters, discover unexplored regions of space, and unravel the mysteries of Stars of Ikarios. Yeah, so you can imagine why an uber Star Citizen fan nerd like myself would be interested in a game like this. And there's one more box because I went all out. I had to get the whole big package, not just the game, all the things, because accessories. It's all about accessories. I also bought the ships of Stars of Ikarios. Let's see. So it's got a bunch more miniatures in the box for, let's see, I've got 6 Ronin scouts, 4 Ronin frigates, 6 synthetic fighters, 4 synthetic cruisers, a synthetic Titan, 4 Uia darts, 2 Uia flyers, 1 Uia Arnaut, 4, it looks like it's Klingon, Takachka assaults, 2 Takachka rollers, 1 Takachka mammoth, 2 Ur gunships, 1 Ur beacon, and 4 Ur science vessels. And the reason I like these is they've got these really, pretty detailed ships on the really cool stands for the game map. But a lot of people have been painting them too, and so it's been really interesting to see in the Discord all the way that people have been painting the different faction ships. Yeah, so pretty cool stuff. But yeah, that was my weekend, is getting to have the Bar Citizen event. We drank Mountain Dew, we ate pizza, we played Star Wars at the Outer Rim, and we talked about Star Citizen. It was an awesome 4 hours. But yeah, so now we've got 2 people in chat and hanging out. Makeneer, Makeineer, and Pumpkin Fury, who are both in the Bar Citizen Boise Discord. And we're both there. Thanks for joining me, guys, and thanks for giving me a follow. And if I don't think if you guys aren't in the Astropub Discord, a lot of the people on tonight and that are giving me followed are big fans of Paul Shelley, Astropub, Astro Historian. So highly encourage you to give him a follow on Twitch and on YouTube. Watch his videos, join in the conversation on Discord. He's curated a really great community, a lot of really fun people. So getting back to Star Citizen after that little detour. So today, this episode is not going to be one of our regular episodes where we do our regularly scheduled content, where we do the spectrum pulses or the scanner anomalies. Yes, Blizzrad, I too am a Saul. Wait, isn't it Saul Felly or Saul Pelly? Dang it! What's the? How do you say the Redeemer lore name for him? Yeah. Yes, we all love Paul here. And Paul, if you're watching, thanks again for giving me a shout out. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so no spectrum pulse, no scanner anomalies tonight. But what we'll be doing is we're going to go over the roadmap roundup from last Wednesday, as you know, as well as the changes to the shiny tracker. If you the roadmap, you know, the roundups, the release view, the progress tracker, great tools. Thank you, CIG, for the information. But yeah, I think it's I forget how he spells Saul Pelly or Shelley or Shaw Pelly. Yeah, from Paul's, not quite canon Redeemer lore. But if you don't use shinytracker.app, you just plug that into whatever your browser is. It will take you to their website, and it's got the analytics tool, and the Delta report is what will tell you is the change to the progress tracker from update to update. And so I subscribe to the Delta report. You may have seen it in some of the Discords that you're in. There's a thing that gets put out that shows. I think that's the deliverables report, but it shows what started work, what changed, what finished work, that sort of stuff. But so we'll look at the Delta report to see what it changed on the progress tracker from this last week's roadmap roundup and update to the one prior to that, which would have been the very beginning of August. And there's always some things that are good. And there's also bad things. So we'll look at the highlights and the changes and talk about what those mean. And then the last thing that we're going to do, if you are a follower of the podcast, you may have seen one of our semi-regular intermittent segments, which is called SITREP. SITREP being short for Situation Report, which is a military thing primarily, where you are giving an update to the situation. You're reporting on an update or a change to the situation. And so we do these generally when there has been more information that has come to light from, however CIG puts it out about things that we have done regular segments on. So the spectrum pulses and the scanner anomalies. If there's new information, we'll do a SITREP on it, and we'll, in order to add that information to the library, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so let's get started with the roadmap roundup. And because Nazeris isn't here, I'm going to, I don't want to say pay homage to him because he's not dead. He just has a migraine. But Nazeris always likes to read the first paragraph, the introduction to the roadmap roundups and the monthly reports. Just because sometimes they can provide a little bit of context, and there's little bits and pieces of information in there. But it says, so happy Wednesday, everyone. This is for Wednesday, August 17th. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision-making that led to any changes. Decision-making, because context is important, people. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who helped to make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup CIG community team. Notable changes. So the first thing they just say it's a housekeeping update. What they did is if you remember from, I want to say it was in July. I don't remember which update it was. They changed what team was it? They changed the props team to the interactables team, or they split it between props and interactables. I forget exactly. But with that change, they split the team into two, and attached one part to the landing zone team. And so the EU landing zone team, with these additional resources for props, so basically all the things that are going to be scattered around the verse that give it flavor, things that make the environment, not the interactables, just the props. So I hate to use it as an example, but the piles of trash are props. The plants, that sort of thing. So what it says is the EU landing zone team has been split into two teams, landing zone 1 and 2, as both now have added resources coming from the props team. This week, the only change on progress tracker is a slight reallocation of resources and the name change for the original team. We will have the full schedule for EU landing zone 2 once it's been finalized by production. So hopefully we will see the schedule added for EU landing zone 2 soon. I am very excited to see what that team gets assigned to it as far as landing zone stuff. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'll open up the teams view, and we're going to look at EU landing zone 1 really quick. So that way you can sort of get an idea. If you haven't looked at that team, this way you can sort of get an idea for what they work on. But they have a whole lot of deliverables because they are... basically that because they build, it's not just the landing zones, but it's basically just any sort of game area. They have their hands in it. Anywhere the player can explore that isn't just generic space or generic planet, open space. So they're working on Bounty Hunter V2. Or they are due to start work on that here pretty soon. They were at work on the cargo system refactor, the cave improvements, comm array mission improvements, the planet of Crusader itself, the environmental space missions, FPS radar scanning, hacking tier 0, increasing player hab number. So increasing the number of player habs to 100 per landing zone. The jump points themselves, new player experience, which is actually something that they're working on right now and is actually supposed to be talked about this Thursday on Inside Star Citizen, going over the changes to the new player experience. If I remember correctly, they're coming with 3.18. Well, that's one of the things that they're working on for 3.18. We'll see. Orison V1 and V2, if you'll remember, they initially released Orison a while back now, and then they added more to Orison later on. I think it was like 6 months later is when they added more to it. The landing zone team, EU landing zone 1, is currently working on the Pyro space stations. So if you remember from the CitizenCon presentation, where they showed off a lot of the work for both the concept art and then the actual in-engine production of the space stations in Pyro, that's the landing zone team. That's them working on it, and they've been working on it for a long time. They also did the Pyro system, planet, and mission setup. They had a big hand in that. Radar scanning and ping, rescue and transport missions, rest stop hangar replacements, and 3 unannounced things. So the EU Landing Zone 1, the landing zone teams have their fingers in a whole lot of things. So when they get their schedule for EU Landing Zone 2, because it's not up on the progress tracker yet, it'll be really interesting to see what they get assigned and how that's going to affect. There we go. How it's going to impact Star Citizen development, as far as showing you what sort of priorities they have going forward with the teams that make places. Here's fingers crossed. Can you see me crossing my fingers? Fingers crossed that we'll get some hint of them working on Castra, Cascom, and Sherman. Next system, please. Yeah. So we'll see. We will see. Moving on from that to change the progress tracker, and we'll come back to that when we look at the shiny tracker update as well. The following deliverables have been added to the progress tracker. The Arena Commander Classic Race Mode Overhaul. A complete overhaul of all systems and maps in Arena Commander's Classic Race Mode. Improvements include a complete refactor of the checkpoint entity and race manager system, improvements to scoring, a complete rework of all 3 New Horizons Speedway maps, as well as a new map, the Snake Pit. This deliverable has been added to the Arena Commander feature team's schedule. And they did put in an update. It was initially put in for 318. That was a mistake. It was meant to be for 319. I think it's, I'm with a lot of the community in that I don't think there's going to be a 319 patch, like a whole separate dev branch. I think we're going to get a Q4 patch that will be like 317 too, except for it'll be for 318. I think we'll get a 318.1 for, I think we'll see 318, probably still like Wave 1 or maybe Open PTU with CitizenCon about that time frame, and maybe release sometime in October with a 318.1 for IAE. That's my prediction. And then a 318.2 for the Q4 patch, which is just going to be, hey, here's some more bug fixes, some more optimizations to PES, and some gameplay things that we've been working on, like the Classic Race Mode overhaul for Arena Commander. That they'll just jam in what they can, make the fixes that they can before they take their 2-week break at the end of the year. And then they'll be hard at work on the 4.0 dev branch, not make a separate dev branch just for a 319. But yeah, so they did say that we've realized an error on the current release view was made due to our team pulling a set of data for the roadmap that was slightly out of date for the Arena Commander feature team. The card for Arena Commander Classic Race Mode Overhaul was intended to release with 319, not 318, and is currently on track to do so. Therefore, this card has been removed from the release view temporarily until all the goals for 319 are finalized, but will still remain on the progress tracker. Apologies for the miscommunication. So we shall see. They're saying 319. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll just have to see. I do think it'll be a 318 too. I do think we'll get a Q4 patch. The Volt Pulse. So Volt being verified off-world laser technologies. What is it? Let's look it up real quick. Yeah. Verified off-world laser technologies. Cool. Designing and creating the verified off-world laser technologies Pulse Energy Pistol. Includes asset creation, animation, and balancing. This deliverable has been added to the weapon content team schedule. Yeah, so great. More weapons. I don't have it with me. We're going to put on... We're going to go in the land of make-believe and put on our tinfoil hats. So if you remember the can you guys hear that? That's my dog snoring in the background. I just noticed when I stopped talking and I was like, wait, what's that noise? Oh, my dog's over there. And she is racked out. I have Boston Terriers, and so they snore like crazy. So apologize if you can hear that in the background. Hopefully it's not, my mic isn't picking up the snoring too much. But this really nice expensive mic that I have, well, expensive for me, does a good job of picking up pretty much everything. Anyway, so if you remember what Chris Roberts said in his letter from the chairman, he talked about Bounty Hunter V2 by the end of the year. I think that with bounty hunting, and Bounty Hunter V2, I think we are going to see the incapacitation, not only being able to track, but incapacitate bounties. And with the Volt weapons, I think that's going to be one of the primary tools for doing that. And I think that's probably why the Volt Pulse is being worked on, why the other Volt weapons have been worked on, because they want those in-game and functional as part of the expansion to bounty hunting. I think we're going to see on-foot bounty hunting as part of this expansion. The next thing for the progress tracker is AI vehicle perception. This feature will give AI the ability to both perceive and detect vehicles from the ground, as well as select ground-based targets when piloting their own, using both vision and radar. This deliverable has been added to the AI tech team schedule. So this is sort of building upon the what's it called? The AI, the planetary navigation mesh. So this is going to allow, this is, hey, we've got NPCs, and not only can they take a dropship down to the planet and land on the planet and disembark and run around on the surface in different places, but now the way this reads to me is that AI on the ground are going to so this from the ground, as well as select ground-based targets when piloting their own, using both vision. So it sounds like they're making it so that way NPCs on the ground, whether they are on the ground or piloting their own ground vehicles, are going to be able to detect other vehicles, both. This feature will give AI the ability to both perceive and detect vehicles from the ground, as well as select ground-based targets when piloting their own, using both vision and radar. So the way this reads to me, and leave a comment in chat or on YouTube if you think differently or if you have other ideas. But the way this sounds to me is like NPCs running around on the ground will be able to detect your vehicle and fire on your vehicle, whether it's a ground-based vehicle or a ship. As well as now we've got AI piloting in the atmosphere. I think this is probably going to include the AI piloting their ships are going to be able to detect you running around on the ground, as well as you driving your vehicle on the ground. So with this technology that they're building, now remember this has been added to the AI tech team schedule. So the AI tech team, they're going to make the tech. And then the feature teams are going to implement that tech into the game. And so when the work for this is done, actually, let's pull it up on the progress tracker. And so AI vehicle perception. And let's see. Where is it? Roadmap companion. Okay, so this sprint just started at the beginning of August, and it's the AI tech and feature team. But it goes to the end of September, and everybody, people who didn't watch the episode that we did about hints, tips, tricks for reading the progress tracker. If you didn't watch that, I highly suggest you go watch it. It'll help make your life easier. Along with that, always when looking at the progress tracker and the roadmap, I always have a tab open that has the public roadmap companion, because that will tell you what teams are upstream and what teams are downstream. And so the AI tech and feature team is one of the downstream teams. And so they only get their schedule out a quarter in advance. So quarter 3 ends at the end of September. So this sprint for AI vehicle perception goes to the end of September. When we get the update for the downstream teams, which usually comes in the first 2 updates of the new quarter, first, second week of October or so, is when we'll start to get those updates to the downstream team schedule. And so that's when we will find out how much further this sprint for this AI vehicle perception will take. Yeah, Shiori Kitsune says about the Volt weapons. I'm really excited. The sniper looked good. Yeah, the visuals for all the Volt weapons are, I don't even know how to describe it, but they have a definitely a much different vibe to me than anything else they have that they've made thus far. The other, so many of the other weapons, look so much like a gun that could be in the very not too distant future. They're very gun looking like. Other than the, what's the, it's the brand that always makes me think of Origin. But that brand looks a little bit more futuristic. But everything else looks pretty contemporary. Whereas the Volt weapons, it's like a mix of it almost looks, gives off a like a more of a high tech Fallout vibe. I don't know if anyone else gets that impression, but it does look like it. It doesn't. It looks like something from very outside of the normal Star Citizen weapon remit, and I like them. I think they're cool. I haven't, you know, I'm looking forward to trying them out with the new Bounty Hunter gameplay that's going to be coming out in the hopefully not too distant future. Uh, duh, 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 duh. So yeah, that's the AI vehicle perception. Keep an eye on that deliverable. It's something that should be really interesting and add just an absolute ton of new dynamism, I guess you'd say, to the planet side missions, planet side PVE gameplay, with NPCs being able to move out and about on the surface of planets as well as fly around in the atmosphere, and now they're going to be able to drive around and detect you driving around and running around. I mean, that's really cool. It's all coming together. The last thing added to the progress tracker is aerodynamic control surfaces. Ships with control surfaces will be able to use them in atmosphere to aid their maneuverability. This will allow for improved performance from ships that have weak maneuvering thrusters in atmosphere and bring new depth to aerodynamic flight in the game. This was previously removed from the Vehicle Experience Team's deliverables when merged with the Vehicle Feature Team. This has returned to the progress tracker with this update. Hydrate, everybody. Hydrate. Dehydration is the enemy. So this is really cool, because it's going to add a lot more variety and skill based ability with flying within atmosphere. Because right now, all you have your ships have varying levels of aerodynamics. There is an aerodynamic simulation for flying in atmosphere with our ships, but the maneuvering for your ship in atmosphere, pardon me, is all done by thrusters. We don't have flaps and ailerons and rudders, anything like that for maneuvering our ships in atmosphere. Now, my big question, and we talked about this short, I think this was last week, maybe a day or two after the roadmap came out, but we were talking about it in the AstroPub Discord, because I'm curious to know which ships are going to have control surfaces. Because there's a lot of ships that have little stubby wings. Are they going to get control surfaces? Or is it just going to be the ones that look like fighters and have great big wings? Is the Hercules going to have control surfaces to aid in its maneuverability when flying in atmosphere? Or is it just the fact that it's aerodynamic, for, generating lift? Those are the questions that I have. I would really like it if CIG put out a list of what ships are going to be getting control surfaces for improved atmospheric flight. The other thing to wonder about is, are all the control surfaces going to be the same? Are some going to be larger than others, and thus able to affect maneuverability greater? Are there going to be we have different grades of components, or you're going to have control surfaces that, hey, these ones are sluggish, or underpowered or something. Are the control surfaces on the Drake Buccaneer going to be not as good as those on, say, Gladius? So I'm really curious to see how this plays out. And the other thing that is, I think of importance is with adding aerodynamic control surfaces. I think with these being added, and actually I'm going to pull it up and we'll look at that sprint real quick. Aerodynamic. Oh boy. Okay, so with aerodynamic control surfaces, I think part of the reason that we don't have more punishing thruster efficiency curves, because the tech is in the game. They didn't implement that. I want to say it was it last June or the June before that? It's been at least a year, maybe going on 2, from when they first implemented the thruster efficiency curves in the game. But they really didn't. They're not very punishing at all. It didn't really affect atmospheric flight all that much for hardly anything. You can still do all sorts of just ridiculous hovering in flight at very low speed with your nose practically to the ground, and nothing's going to happen. I think that with aerodynamic control surfaces being worked on, that once these are implemented into the game and into the ships that are going to have them, I think they will revisit the thruster efficiency curves and start to make that more impactful. And the reason I say that is because I've talked about it before, talked about it many times. If you're here from the Astropub Discord, you know that one of my soapboxes / hills that I will die on is that of dropships. And I'm looking forward to when they better differentiate ships with actual VTOL thrusters versus those that don't have them. Because right now you can hover with your maneuvering thrusters, no big deal. That's not going to be the case. And so with these being added in, I can imagine we will start to see them implementing the thruster efficiency curves not long after, where the fighters that have these control surfaces, the more maneuverable Atmos ships, will take advantage of the control surfaces and the lift generating ability for flying around in Atmo, but will have their thruster efficiency curves implemented in order to better differentiate them from the ships that have dedicated VTOLs. And it's not just the Valkyrie or let's see. The Valkyrie has, and I'm talking about the rotating ones. The Valkyrie has them, the Cutlass has them. The Connie has those VTOL fans. How do those work on moons? Not much atmosphere there. The Hercules has VTOLs that pivot. They're not. I don't think they provide thrust when they're outside of VTOL mode. There's a number of them, but then there's ships with fixed VTOLs. So the Carrack has fixed VTOLs on the belly. The 890 Jump does, if I remember correctly. I know the Odyssey is supposed to. The Liberator is supposed to have fixed VTOLs on the belly. And so with these aerodynamic control surfaces coming in, I think this is the next big step in really differentiating between ships when it comes to flying in atmosphere, but also flying within gravity. So I'm looking forward to it. That sprint just started here in the middle of August, and it goes to the middle of February for the vehicle feature team. And the vehicle feature team is a upstream team. And so one thing I have noticed is that with the some of the upstream teams that have their sprints going out into Q1 2023, which is the extent of the roadmap right now, the progress tracker. Some of them show them starting or ending like in the middle of March. And so a lot of people have said, oh, okay, well, it's it's ending before the end of March, so that's when they plan on finishing the work. I don't think that's the case. I think that some of those sprints where you see it going to mid-March, but not the end of March, I think that's probably just a typo, or however however Jake Bradley, the mastering commander of the Star Citizen community team, and our the god of the progress tracker and the roadmap, God bless. I think the way that he and the team utilize the progress tracker, I think it's just might be not a typo, but something like that made it so those don't go all the way out to the end of March. But the aerodynamic control services goes out to mid-February, not mid-March. So I'm going to keep an eye on this sprint going forward, because I'm very interested to see where that ends up landing when we get Q2 2023 added into the progress tracker for the upstream teams, as well as we get closer, say Q4 and into Q1. I imagine this will be something that they will show us on ISC. Bless me. But yeah, I imagine this will be something they show us on ISC, just because that's something that's really cinematic that they could show off that would look really cool when you've got your. And correct me if I'm wrong and chatter in the comments, but I fly in helicopters. I don't know planes all that well, but the flaps on the wings adjusting, and is it the rudder that's on the tail? If you play Microsoft Flight Simulator, please let me know if I'm getting that wrong. But being able to see those and seeing the simulation for them, hey, this is turning and it's turning the ship, or it's pitching, rolling the ship, that sort of thing, without the activation of the thrusters, as well as like, are we going to be able to glide? Can you turn, go into Atmo and turn off your thrusters to reduce your signature and go into a glide slope, and then kick your thrusters back on, once you get down to a certain level, in order to more stealthily get down to a planet? Because the ability for doing that as part of stealth gameplay, especially if you're making a landing on a planet, the scenario that comes to mind would be the Vanguard, and you've got a Vanguard hoplite, and you've got your special operations team in the back of the Vanguard hoplite, and you want to go hit a target, or you want to insert the team to do some reconnaissance on a target. You come into the atmosphere, below, maybe below the horizon, visually, and to avoid radar detection from your target. But you come in and you shut off your thrusters and you glide in like that until you get low to the ground, and you've got momentum and lift and you're being generated. And then once you settle in right here, then you kick your thrusters back on and you fly to where you're going to land in order to avoid detection, but then to be able to close with your landing zone without, flying straight down at them. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff out of the Roadmap Roundup. But so now we need to get into the Shiny Tracker. And so for Shiny Tracker, I'm going to pull up the Delta report for August 17th. And we'll just quickly go through the things that they will always show you: deliverables that were removed, added, and then deliverables that were updated. So, sometimes the deliverables will be made shorter. Most of the time, because it's Star Citizen, they get made longer. But starting from the top, so everybody get out your handkerchief to dry your tears, because the Tumbril Ranger was removed. If you're not familiar with the Tumbril Ranger, it's the Star Citizen version of a motorcycle, and there's several variants of them. A lot of people have been really looking forward to them for a long time. And so building, implementing, and balancing Tumbril Land Systems two-wheeled bike, the Ranger, as a game-ready vehicle. And this was removed. It was initially supposed to start at the beginning of October and go to the end of December. And that was removed. I imagine it was probably removed because the let's see, that was the U.S. vehicle content team. I imagine that was removed just because they're so busy with the Banu Merchantman and the Corsair. Things that were added, the things that we already talked about, deliverables that were updated. Let's see, why is it not showing me? There we go, scroll bar. Deliverables that were updated. So there's a whole bunch of them, and I'm not going to read all of them. But the end date for the AI usable system V2 was extended from the end of June to mid-September. That's probably just changes because that's AI tech and features. I think that's a downstream team, so more changes regarding that. The Anvil Legionnaire. So it says the vehicle content team, EU, freed up 74 days of work. And actually here, let's pull up. The cool thing about the Shiny Tracker is you can just click on the name of the deliverable and it'll open up a new tab and take you straight to that deliverable. Aha. So, I hadn't noticed this before. Okay, so what changed? Okay, so EU vehicle content, EU freed up 74 days of work. Okay, so I think what happened is the Legionnaire was supposed to go into production sooner, and it got pushed back. I didn't even know it was supposed to go into production. And Ionic Force, no, we are not supposed to be seeing this on screen. I do not have that scene set up on OBS yet. So when Nazeris recovers from his migraine, and he said that he will help me set up the scene so that way I can have it, so that way on screen it will show both of us as well as maybe something off screen. Yeah, sorry, you'll just have to either follow along on your own computer or just listen to the sultry sound of my voice as I describe the progress tracker to you. What does Paul call them? His dulcet tones? I don't think I have those. I have no tones that are dulcet. So if you have heard me talk and or rant before, you know I'm a fan of dropships because I'm Tree0311 and I'm the former Marine. Love dropships, love all the dropship ships. Love the Anvil Legionnaire. I didn't realize it was supposed to go into production. I thought it was just the concept. And so I don't know how I missed this, but it is scheduled to start, even after this change, to go into production with the EU vehicle content team in the beginning of January. So that's really interesting. But it says the change was the vehicle content team freed up 74 days of work. So that means it was probably originally starting production in mid-October, and they just pushed the start date back 2.5 months. Blizzrad says, I'm unreasonably excited for the Legionnaire. Same girl, same. I think the Legionnaire, yes, it's, built for docking and boarding, which is going to be a ton of fun. And the Legionnaire is going to take advantage of hacking, which is in production right now. But I also think it's just going to be a good dropship. As much as I love the Valkyrie, it's a big dropship. I mean, it holds 20 troops, a vehicle. You've got a crew of up to 2 remote, 2 turret, and a pilot. So a crew of up to 5. Like, that's a big strike force, not including your escorts or anything like that. Whereas the Legionnaire is a pilot, co-pilot, and it's up to 8 troops, right? Yeah, it was 8. Because initially in concept, it was supposed to be 10, and now I think it's 8. Or is it vice versa? No, I'm pretty sure it's 8. I'll have to look at that again. But it's also a bunch smaller than the Valkyrie, and it fits in an extra small hangar. Extra small hangar is what's on the Polaris and the Odyssey as well. So that's got me really excited for it. But it should be a very efficient way to insert a team. Because it has VTOLs, you'll be able to do it in those heavy gravity planets. You'll be able to do what I call the J, or the button hook maneuver, where you come down and you're basically coming in straight down like that. And you straight in, coming in fast and hard on the target, and then you turn and put yourself in a VTOL mode and sort of glide and settle into your landing zone like that. With 4 VTOLs and a ship the size of the Legionnaire, it should be a great ship for doing that, and that's how you want to drop in on a target. You want to hit it hard, hit it fast, not show your belly to anti-aircraft guns until it's way too late for them to engage you. Give them a very small profile to shoot at, where all that front armor is. If you look at the jump point for the design of the Legionnaire, you'll see that like all that plating on the front, that's armor. It's meant to be, it's anvil. It's meant to be armored. And so I think it's going to really excel for inserting small teams, into hostile environments, as well as just being a good all-around dropship. I'm hopeful that it has a good amount of inventory space besides what is meant for like heavy weapons and breaching stuff towards the front of the squad compartment. If you look at the cutaway image that they made, it shows that in the top deck, there's actually a good amount of space. And obviously there's going to be components in those hatches along the walls, but I'm hoping that there's going to be storage space up there as well. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm excited because it's going into production. And I had made a prediction when it first came out, because it was a Invictus Launch Week ship, that it would release for Invictus Launch Week this next year. I think I'm probably going to end up being wrong with that prediction if they're not putting it into production until the beginning of January. But we'll just have to wait and see. It's not a huge ship. It's Anvil, so maybe they could get it done. We're just going to keep an eye on it. The biggest thing that will be telling is when they add the downstream teams to it. When they add the downstream teams, that's when they're getting ready to wrap that ship up and it's getting ready for release. Back to the Shiny Tracker Delta report. The end date for the Argo SRV was extended from middle of December to the end of December. So not much change there. For Bounty Hunter V2, come back to that here in a second. So Blizzrad says, I'm curious if it will release with the hacking functionality. I think it will. And here I'm gonna deliverables and I'm opening up a second tab because we're gonna pull up hacking. Because hacking, how we talk about sometimes we talk about sleeper things showing up on the release view just out of nowhere. You're like, wait a minute, since when was that planned? And all of a sudden it's on the release view for the upcoming patch. How we just had a few of those added to 3.18. I'm assuming that we're probably going to get more. Hacking Tier 0 is being worked on by 10 teams right now. One of them is Squadron 42 Art, just started their sprint. And then the weapon feature team has been working on it forever, part-time, since the beginning of January last year. But if we look at the weapon feature team for the Roadmap Companion, the weapon feature team is an upstream team. So their schedule goes out a year in advance. Their sprint for hacking is the last one that's scheduled. There's been a lot of downstream work already done, VFX, UI, all that. The weapon feature team sprint goes to the end of October. I'm going to make a prediction right now that Hacking Tier 0 will be a release as part of 3.18 or a 3.18.x patch. We're either going to get it for Q3 or we're going to see it for a Q4.x patch. and because the kicker will be if we see it on ISC coming up in the next month or two. Because a lot of us, are probably predicting that 318 is not going to make the end of Q3, considering that's 5 weeks out. Yeah, they ain't going to make it. But if 318 ends up being a late October, early November patch when it goes live, right before they need to do 318.1 for IAE, I could definitely see Hacking Tier 0 making it. Now, reading this sprint, all back-end tasks related to creating the first pass of the hacking feature that will be used in future location and mission updates. When implemented in game, this feature will be used to access systems and areas that have been previously closed to the player. So if you run around in landing zones and other locations and you see doors that would normally have the button on it that you could use it to open, whether it's red and says locked or closed or off, whatever. A lot of those are going to be, I'm betting, will be hackable. The hacking process will be represented via a mini game that is displayed on the player's HUD visor. The other thing related to hacking is lockable containers. And so that sprint was worked on by the EUPU feature team from November of last year up until end of June this year. And so I imagine with Tier 0 hacking, we're going to see some hackable doors in order to get to mission areas, as well as lockable containers where you normally we would open up the boxes to get loot. I think that a lot of those containers are going to be locked, and you're going to either have to hack them or cut them open. And I think that those could very well be coming in with the next major patch. So we'll see. If it doesn't come to be, hit me up in anywhere you see me and be like, dude, you were wrong. You're full of it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It could happen. Try to stay positive. But the indications that we do have say that it's pretty far along. They have to put in a ton of work. So that's an inadvertent SITREP. I didn't mean to do a SITREP on hacking because we've done a segment on hacking. Nazeris did a big old long segment on hacking. So I inadvertently, we'll edit it in post. Congratulations, there's your SITREP on hacking. Thank you, Blizzrad. But if it does come out, if we do get hacking in Q3, Q4, I guarantee that the Legionnaire will release with its hacking functionality, because I wouldn't expect it until I really want it to come out with Invictus launch week. I just don't think it's going to happen. But Q2, Q3 next year, yeah. You support me in my LHD fanaticism, so I can forgive you if it doesn't make it. Yes. Blizzrad is one of the founding members of the cult of the assault ship, the cult of the LHD, LPD. We haven't come up with what the actual name is going to be, but there's already the cult of the Endeavor, the cult of the Crucible, and so we felt that the in-lore Anvil large-scale troop and vehicle transport, the LHD, the LPD, needed its own cult in order to get some love behind it, love and support. John Crew, please be listening. Yeah, so back to the shiny tracker. So Legionnaire is going into production, but later than originally thought. Argo SRV pushed back just a little bit, as far as the completion of the scheduled work. And Bounty Hunter V2. So this is the other reason I think that hacking might be coming in with 318 at some point, Q3, Q4, is CR was hoping to have Bounty Hunter V2 in at some point towards the end of this year. He said it in the letter from the chairman. But Bounty Hunter V2 just added 36 days of work from mid-January to the beginning of March. And so they added work for the mission feature team, which mission feature team is an upstream team, so that's good. And EU vehicle content team added 11 days of work. So let's go ahead and we'll pull up Bounty Hunter V2 real quick. Because why would the vehicle content team be working on Bounty Hunter V2? Oh, I don't know. Because we have bounty hunting ships? Well, what would they be doing? Maybe those bounty hunting ships will finally get some functionality for their what do we want to call them? The cells, or the cryo tubes, the stasis tubes, whatever that you put the bounties in. Black Dominion Gaming. Hey, thanks for joining me, bud. I know that you regularly watch us when we host this on Nazeris' channel. As you can see, Nazeris is suffering from a splitting headache, a migraine, and I believe that it's probably my fault. I know you might have missed it, but we were planning to host this on my channel anyway because Nazeris is dealing with internet issues, has been for a while. You've probably seen that when I think you do Space Engineers with him. So he already had that giving him enough headaches. And then, so when we decided to put this on my channel in the interim until he can get that addressed, we had to set up all this OBS stuff. And so I'm pretty sure that put him over the edge. I'm pretty sure I am the reason for that migraine that you can see on the left of the screen within Nazeris' brain. And so Nazeris, if you're listening later, I apologize for giving you a headache. I hope you feel better. But Black Dominion Gaming, thanks for joining me, bud. I appreciate it. We are going through the Shiny Tracker changes on the Progress Tracker. And then after that, we're going to be doing a few SITREPs on some of our topics we've talked about before. So Bounty Hunter V2, the current sprint goes out to the end of February, which is good. There's a bunch of teams that have worked on it. The EU landing zone team is starting work here at the end of the month, going to the end of October. Mission feature team, we just said, added a little over a month of work, and so that sprint got extended from ending at the beginning of November to sort of mid-December. And right now there's also a sprint for the USPU feature team. Those are the people that take things that are made by all the different tech teams and implement them into the game, make gameplay out of them. And so they've been working on this for quite a while, since the beginning of the year. But their sprint goes out to the end of February. And their sprint is the last one, the one that lasts the longest. I think that Chris was, I don't think that Chris is, I don't want to say he's not wrong. I think that he just reports what he's told. And there's a phenomenon for where people in leadership positions, the people beneath them, who they give them information because they don't want to disappoint them, even though they know they're being overly optimistic. And it's happened throughout history where, I don't want to mention dictators, but it happens a lot with dictators. Chris, I'm not calling you a dictator, but it's a really common thing, in history. And, if you ask Paul, Shelley, or Al, they will tell you the historical context for this. But there's plenty of incidences where, a leader's generals will tell them, oh yes, we're doing fine, or this is on track, or yes, we can do this, and they were horribly wrong. Well, in these cases, Chris and whoever else will make statements saying, yeah, we think we can get this done in this sort of time frame. And all he's doing is he's parroting what someone else already told him. And so he doesn't, probably doesn't know any better. Because he especially with the tech stuff, that's totally outside his wheelhouse. But if somebody tells him, yeah, we think we can get this done in this amount of time, he just repeats it back to us, and we give him all the flack. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was by design, so that way he takes the hit and not the devs. People make the memes about him and not the devs who reported to him, who 6 months later are like, yeah, we're working really hard on it, it's just not going as fast as possible, it's gonna, as we'd like, or we ran into these blockers, it's going to take a little longer. So Chris said that he thought that we would have Bounty Hunter V2 by the end of this year. Not going to happen. Even via the progress tracker, we know that's not going to happen. Do I think it's a strong contender for 4.0? Yes. Do I think 4.0 will release the end of Q1 like Chris was thinking? No. I think that patch will slip into April 2023. I think we'll be looking at a 4.1 for Invictus launch week. I don't think, or a 4.0.x versus a 4.1 for Invictus launch week. But I do think it's very possible that we will see Bounty Hunter V2 as one of the main gameplay features for 4.0. And because they added a short sprint to vehicle content in there, I wouldn't be surprised if, as part of this, they might implement either some HUD level functionality within the ships for bounty hunting, or they might be making it so that way you could use the cryotubes, the stasis chambers, whatever, in ships like it's the Avenger Stalker, right? The Cuddy Blue, and the, oh dang it, the Hawk, the Anvil Hawk. Yeah. And Blizzard says it could make it for 3.19, maybe, considering we don't know when it is coming. That's if we get a 3.19 patch. One thing that Jake, God bless him, mentioned in Paul's chat, and I don't want to take what he said out of context, out of turn, but he did say that they don't know if they're going to have, if the Q4 patch is going to be a 3.18.x or a 3.19. And if it's a 3.18.x and they're just, then we might not have a 3.19. It all depends on if they feel like they need to have a entirely new dev branch for PES following 3.18 in order to make substantial changes before implementing server meshing. I don't think that there's going to be substantial changes. I think we're going to go from the 3.18 branch to the 4.0 branch, just because that would all, making an entirely new dev branch is a lot of work and a lot of QA work. But we won't know until we get closer, especially because we don't even have 3.18 yet. Like 3.18 isn't in Evo. I think 3.18 is in internal QA. I think the build is already, built, and it's in internal QA, and they're going to add things to it and test them out as they do, as well as, during Evo. But, if I had my druthers, we wouldn't have a 3.19. I would not want to put that extra work on the devs unnecessarily. I'd be happy with just a polish pass in Q4 in order to give us a few more things, some more bug fixes, some stability over the holiday break, and let them focus on 4.0 and Pyro. But yeah, Bounty Hunter V2 for 4.0 I think is solid. There are always changes, it seems like, with every roadmap update for extending the work on each of the chapters for Squadron 42, and they'll just keep on extending them until they don't. But yeah. The other, let's see, the end date for the Drake Corsair was initially supposed to be the end of September. Now it is November 10th. So this is why the different things got pushed back ship-wise, like the Legionnaire. November 10th is like a week before IAE. So Pumpkin Fury is saying that's his birthday. Good B-Day gift to me. Let's pull up the sprint and see, because what they did is the end date has been extended from 9/29 to 11/10. It says audio freed up 7 days of work, but it was extended. So they changed the audio sprint. They made that a little bit shorter, and it looks like the U.S. vehicle content team sprint got elongated to, because it was the end of September, so to mid October, and then the vehicle feature team. I don't know if that was already on there and it just got pushed back a little bit, because it doesn't say anything about it changing. Yeah, but that is what goes from basically mid October to mid November. The interesting thing is it's the vehicle feature team. I wonder what features they're going to be working on for the Corsair, because I can't think of what all the work would be that they'd be doing for it. I mean, generally vehicle feature teams, assigned to almost every ship that gets released, but yeah. So I think the Drake Corsair is going to get released with IAE with that 318.x patch, which kind of is a bummer. I was hoping that we would see it, during CitizenCon, during some sort of demo. We probably still will, but I don't think it'll get released. And maybe IAE, they're just going to release it all in one patch. So it'll be the first time they've done that, and it's always been a .x patch. But I don't think if they do 318 like mid-October, I don't think the Corsair is going to be in 318. It'll be 318.x. So we'll be 318 just in a .x patch. The Drake Vulture, the vehicle feature team, for some reason their sprint wasn't already on there, but it hasn't changed anything. So the Drake Vulture is still on track for 318, so no real change there. Just closing some of these tabs real quick. And environmental space missions. Ouch. So EU Landing Zone 1 was assigned, revealing 95 days of work. End date for that sprint was extended from the end of June to the beginning of December. So environmental space missions could very well be one of those things that they would just casually drop into a Q4 patch, a 318.x patch. Kind of like in 317.2, where they give us, new missions and gameplay, that sort of stuff. Well, just giving us new missions, in the area that we already have. End date for jump points was extended from October 18th to March 16th. Vehicle feature team added 28 days of work. So, they're going to have to get those done. Well, and this is one of those things where it doesn't have to necessarily be done for Pyro. They can have the one for Pyro done and have more work added to that sprint later when they add in more, add in changes or different aspects to jump points. But they're definitely, that sprint ending mid-March does suggest that it could continue past March. just because of the way the progress tracker works. We've talked about that. Big ticket item, because it's UI, and Nazeris and I are big fans of UI and the UI that they've been working on. It was ISC last week where they showed all the UI. Oh my gosh, I watched that episode like 4 times. That was so good, so good. I can't wait to see more of that stuff in game. Zane Bien and his team are just doing fantastic work, and I know it's taken a long time and it's hard to be patient, but it's definitely going to be worth it. I'm super excited for it. But the map and radar system rework. This is the new star map. So that's why this is important. The end date was extended from 9/15 to 9/29. UI tech team added 36 days of work. So let's pull up that sprint really quick. So UI tech is a downstream team. So that downstream team, that sprint initially went to the middle of September. Now it goes to the end of September. So there's a very good chance that this work will continue past Q3, because at the beginning of October, we'll get the update to the downstream teams' schedules, and we will see if the work for the map and radar system rework continues past Q3. Right now, the sprints, you've got the GFX sprint goes for a couple more weeks to the beginning of September. Squadron 42 UI goes out to mid-September and then stops. But then the UI tech team goes out to the end of September. So I would not be surprised if this continues into Q4. But I think that they are, because of how often they've been talking about it, I think they're making really good progress. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up actually being a 318 edition. We'll just have to wait and see. If not 318, maybe that's one of those things they slide in for a Q4 patch. We'll just have to wait and see with the updates. But they know they've been saying they want to show it to us. Jake said, or was it Xylo? Apologies, I forget. Said that they want to show off the new Moby Glass. And with all the UI work, I imagine they're getting pretty close to the updated map and radar. MFD rework it was extended just a couple of days. It's going out to mid February, so keep an eye on that. Hull C, and so I know we have a lot of Hull C fans in the communities that I engage in. The Hull C, and I'll talk more about this when we get to the SITREPs. End date has been extended from mid-June to mid-November. What else got extended to mid-November? The Corsair. And the Corsair is nearing completion. And we've seen the Corsair. We hear about it in the monthly reports all the time. The Corsair is definitely a solid pick for an IAE release. Well, the Hull C got extended with the vehicle feature team adding 27 days of work. The Hull C got extended to the exact same date, end of sprint. Coincidence? I don't think so. What about you guys? Do you think the Hull C is going to be a IAE release? Yeah, I definitely think that the Blizzrad, yes, maybe it needs cargo refractor to explore other people's hulls. Yes, that's what we're going with. The Drake Corsair got delayed because it needs the cargo refractor in order to explore other people's cargo holds or holes. But I think that those two having the end of their sprints ending on the same day, like the week or whatever, that I think That's generally right about the time that IAE starts, or is it the week after? I forget. I think it's like the week before Thanksgiving is when it starts. I'll have to look at my calendar again. But yeah, I'm making another prediction. Call me out on it if I get proven wrong, or give me props for getting lucky if I get it right. Hull C Corsair IAE 2020 2952. But I actually think that reiterates that maybe they're not waiting on the larger cargo refactor with ship-based tractor beams and all that to implement the whole C. Or maybe the cargo refactor has more to it than we originally thought. Who knows? The new player experience, which we're going to get some information on from Todd Pappy, right? On ISC on Thursday. The start date was corrected. We just moved up a week, to end of June. The end date has moved closer from November 8th to September 22nd. So let's see. Yeah. So hopefully with Todd Pappy talking about it, we'll get more information on the progress and what they're planning for the implementation of that, or at least the initial implementation for the changes and updates to it. So we shall see. Tune into ISC for more information, but keep an eye on that sprint. Quantum travel experience. Vehicle feature team added 30 days of work, so they are working on that. Vehicle feature team. Okay, so the vehicle feature team is an upstream team. I'm not sure why all of these sprints were recently added to the vehicle feature team. And just because we're not, well, maybe so, because we're like a month out and some change from when. Yeah, because normally what happens is you get the updates to the roadmap and the team schedules at the beginning of the new quarter. In the first two updates. So like in July would have been the new quarter. That's when we got the update for all the downstream teams, but also they add more work for the upstream teams. That's farther out. And so maybe they're just late on getting their schedule out. It seems like a month late, but that's the only thing I can think of, because there's a lot of changes to the vehicle feature team with adding work and sprints in this Delta report for the Shiny Tracker. Resource management. They've been talking a lot about that. They talked about it in Star Citizen Live last week. They talked about it in the monthly reports. If you haven't watched the video, it's from, I want to say it was like an August 2020 Star Citizen Live or ISC, I forget, where they talked about resource management, showing the prototype with, I think it was that Jared Josivius? I forget that dev's name. He's got the interesting accent, showing us the mock-up on the Hammerhead of how resource management would work. And so that sprint went from is currently on the schedule for, from the beginning of January 2021 all the way out to the end of March 2023. Now, this could be one of those things where they implement it, where you get an initial implementation and then they build on it later. There's been multiple things that get released, and then they have more work added on to that deliverable on the progress tracker post-release, to iterate on it, do version 2, or tier 2, that sort of thing. So no way of knowing when that will come exactly, or in what state it will come. But they are adding a lot of work. So vehicle content EU was assigned, adding 74 days of work. Vehicle content US was assigned, adding 110 days of work. Vehicle feature team added 42 days of work. all of this to me with the vehicle content teams getting so much work added. Vehicle content EU is 5 art devs. Vehicle content US, a design dev, an art dev, and 3 tech content devs. Vehicle feature team, 2 design devs, and 4 engineering devs. Pardon me. 1 second. Hydrate, everyone. Everybody, drink water right now. All right. Here we go. To me, that suggests that they are working on a bunch of ships to implement this for. They want to, they did say, Jared did say that the Hull A was going to be the first ship that it gets added into. I think it's going to get rolled out sooner with the Hull A and maybe the Hammerhead as well. Like a couple of ships for us to test it out on, to give them feedback, and then they'll roll it out to more ships. But they're already going to be working on those ships. They're just going to take the feedback as we give it to them in order to implement that as they go. But with that many devs working on it, I think it's that they're making these changes to the ships that were built with this in mind. So that way they'll be ready sooner. And then when the older ships get their gold standard passes, I think then that's when those will get updated to implement this sort of stuff. So think about ships like the Freelancer series or even the Connie, getting changes to their layout, where components are, that sort of thing, to implement these new changes. So let's see. I've got that deliverable pulled up real quick. Yeah, so goes all the way out to the end of March. You've got EUPU feature team working on it part-time all the way out to the end of March. Vehicle content teams, what you talked about, the vehicle feature teams. So the vehicle content teams, EU, goes from the beginning of October to mid-December. Pardon me. Spaghetti. US vehicle content goes from beginning of October to mid-January. The vehicle feature team has been ongoing for a while, and they're going out to mid-November. So keep an eye on the sprint. We'll have to keep an eye out and see if they add any downstream teams to that. Let's see, downstream. Yeah, no downstream teams assigned right now. So we'll have to see if any downstream teams get assigned to it in the next quarter or two, and if the work for the EUPU feature team gets extended out beyond Q1. But I think this is going to be one of those things that they roll out in phases. So we shall see. So we already poured one out for our homie, the Tumbril Ranger, because everybody's looking forward to being able to be in a biker gang in Star Citizen. We've got another homie that we need to pour one out for. But he isn't dead. He's not dead. He's just wounded. So the RSI Apollo, let's call it, if not top 3, definitely top 5 favorite ships. Because the Valkyrie is number 1 right now. The in lore, but it's going to be real, I swear, LPD, LHD is number 2. The Apollo is number 3 for me. Was initially supposed to have started work a month ago. But due to work on the Corsair for the U.S. vehicle content team, that work got pushed back, along with the Tumble Ranger, and I think, was there another one that we talked about? The vehicle content team is now not starting on the Apollo until the beginning of January, and even that is technically a maybe. I'll read the quote from John Crew from the Star Citizen Live last Friday. Black Dominion Gaming says, "I know not what these are, but they sound fun." The Anvil Valkyrie is the dropship. Not the only dropship, but it's my favorite dropship. It's it's super cool. you'll have to look it up. It's really well done. It's a super cool looking dropship, and because I'm a former Marine, I love dropships. Anything for inserting Marines and down to a planet and letting them bring hate and discontent to the enemies of the Empire. I like. The LPD, LHD is that those are the acronyms. Gosh, the designations that the U.S. Navy uses for assault ships for U.S. Marines. They carry vehicles, they carry Marines, they carry aircraft. It's how Marines deploy. Cromtac says it's an amazing dropship. Yeah, and like we were talking about with the control surfaces for ships, when the control surfaces come in for fighters and then they iterate on the thruster efficiency curves, it will be the Valkyrie's time to shine. And I think that is when you're going to see those low flying videos that like Tarada does that are just insanely cool. I think you're going to see a lot of low flying videos for the for when the control surfaces come in, but you're also going to see dropship videos of just hot shot dropship pilots coming in loud, hot, and fast, and just doing insane landings in order to dump troops, onto a landing zone, without splatting onto the surface. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. Blazerad says, I love the Valk, but I want a dropship specifically designed to hot drop a Spartan. Yes. If you are a Star Citizen fan, or a Star Wars fan, and you remember from the Clone Wars, the dropship that they used, it's the LAAT, low altitude, I forget what it stands for. But there's the LAATI, which is the one that you always see all the clones in, and then it gets blown up out of the sky, and the ones that survive are the ones that have the Jedi in them. But they also have the LAT-C, and that's the one that drops the tanks. Somebody in chat remind me what it's called, but the tank that's on like 6 legs. It's like an ant. I think that we're going to get a variant of the Valkyrie, and I've converted Blizzrad to this subset of our cult as well, that can carry a heavy vehicle like a Spartan, or really anything on the Atlas chassis, that can carry a heavy vehicle, because you would need one in order to be able to really enable the cult of the LPD, the cult of the LHD. Cromtac says the Oregon part of does milsim, and we practice lots of drops. So much fun. Yeah, to me, it's because I ride in the back of helicopters all the time. If you watch Astropub, Astro Historian, you've probably heard me talk about it, but that's what I do in real life. That's why my logo is sort of medical in nature. I'm a flight paramedic for the Army National Guard, as well as a civilian flight paramedic. So I ride in the back of Blackhawks and Lakotas, which is an EC-145, big helicopters, little helicopters, and dropship flying is, to me, the closest thing to flying a helicopter. And I love flying in helicopters. And the way that we come in on a helicopter, and you come in like this, and then you flare in order to slow yourself down and settle into your landing area, or come to a hover and have soldiers or Marines fast rope out of the aircraft. Or for me, doing medevac, we do what's called dynamic hoist. If you want to see some, no, it's too late. Yeah, if you want to see some cool shit, go watch videos on dynamic hoist, because I'll be hooked up on the hoist, riding on the outside of the helicopter as it's coming in, and I'll come in, and you can't see me because if you're watching this later or just listening, you can't see me flying with my hand on the screen, but the helicopter comes in, and I get out of the helicopter, and I have my feet on either the either the edge of the door or the skids, depending on the aircraft, hooked up to the hoist, and then as we're coming in, I'm riding the hoist down, so that way the aircraft flares and slows, and I get dropped down on the ground. I release, and aircraft rolls out and then takes off. In order to do a very quick insertion, get me on the ground to the victim faster. It's a combat in a combat environment to limit the time that the aircraft is exposed to enemy fire, all that sort of stuff. And so the way dropships land, in order to rapidly get down to the surface, flare and come to a halt, disgorge troops, either from a hover or a quick landing, and then rapidly take off and get back up to make it so that way they're minimizing their time on target or time as target. So yeah, Cromtac, I'm totally with you. Hot drops and dropship flying with VTOLs is going to be, I think it should get more attention, but I think it's going to be right up there with the videos that you get for the low flying, as far as the fighter pilots are cool, but dropship pilots are cooler. Cromtac says, I was radios and a linguist army way back during the first Gulf War. Thank you for your service, brother. Though I never saw combat, did some training with 4 ground recon, but never did air assault or airborne. Rappelling was the scariest part of basic for me, but I loved it. Yeah, I'm ironically, I'm afraid of heights. I'm actually afraid of falling, but I am totally comfortable with being attached to a hoist, or being attached to a rescue system, like being lowered down off of the side of a building or a cliff. I'm even comfortable with rappelling as long as I have something to hold on to, or something that is attached to me and secure. I'm okay. If you ask me to go to the edge of the Grand Canyon and look down, my hands just instantly pour sweat. It's like, oh, nope, hard nope. I'll appreciate it from back here. Someone get a picture. We're good. Yeah. So yeah, pour one out for my homie, the RSI Apollo. It is getting worked on, but it's going to be a little bit. Another thing, though, that's interesting from RSI that is being worked on. So the end date for the RSI links, pardon me, I've got hiccups. The RSI links had a concept art sprint in July, and then we didn't hear anything about it. It's now going into production. The fabled links, of which we don't even have any concept art. We've only ever heard of it. It's the, if I remember correctly, it's the luxury rover, the sort of luxury version of the Ursa that's supposed to come with the RSI Connie Phoenix. Yeah. Correct me in chat if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. But it's actually finally going into production. It's been on and off the progress tracker for multiple times, but it's going into production starting at the end of October, and it goes out into mid-December. So to me, that means that the Lynx is probably just more of a variant of the Ursa rover and isn't going to be too terribly different. But they'll add probably downstream teams to it with this next quarter update. And I would be willing to bet that the Lynx might be something that comes in for Q4. Black Dominion Gaming says, speaking of being in the service, is it possible to mail things to friends or family in the service? Yeah, if they are deployed or overseas, they have, oh gosh, what's it called? A APO number, I think it is. And yeah, if they're deployed overseas, they will be given an APO address, and they can give you that address and it will get to them. It takes a while, but you can mail stuff to them. I did 2 deployments to Iraq in the early mid 2000s and was in Afghanistan in 2019, 2020. And yeah, I had mail all the time. Cromtac says, sorry for derailing your train of thought on the roadmap. No, dude, I am all about the interaction. That's what this episode is about, is going over the roadmap and the progress tracker. We've got a few things for sit reps after we get done here, but those will go pretty quick. So you're not derailing at all, and I appreciate the interaction and you joining me. Love your military perspective on everything Star Citizen. Your appearances on Paul's stuff are the best ones he's done. Dude, you flatter me. Bro, that is so nice. And thank you for answering some of my questions in his Discord. Uh, do you go by Cromtac on the Discord too? I can't. Some people's names are different, so yeah, man. I am happy to help in any way I can. I have been a huge fan of Paul's and Paul's work since the beginning. I am an OG Paul Shelley fan, unabashed. Um, like Paul, I met Paul. I had been watching and listening to Paul for a while already, but I met Paul at CitizenCon 2018 or 2948 in Austin because that's where he lives, and I met Fastcart too. If you've ever seen Fastcart on Soul Citizen as well as on on Captain's Table, Fastcart and I ate ribs, and it was ridiculous. But yeah, I have a picture of my wife and I with Paul right after doing shots with him at the Bar Citizen in at CitizenCon 2048. It was one of the best experiences as a nerd and a gamer in my entire life. I've been to a number of different conventions, you know, and that was an absolute favorite of mine. But yeah, absolutely no derailing. Keep the comments and the questions coming. I am all about it. That's what this is about, is interacting with the community, growing the community, and doing what we do here at Pathfinders, which is, hey, we all have questions about Star Citizen. Let's answer them together. Because, like we always say here in the Pathfinders, Star Citizen and its development is nebulous. And so we're going to scan it down, man, and we're going to find answers, or at least the best answers we can get. Black Dominion Gaming says, do they have plans for more mining vehicles? Mining mindlessly is the only reason I'd get one of these games. Yes. So right now we have hand mining. We have a ground vehicle miner in the Rock and the DS, the dual seat. We have 2 mining ships in game, a single seater, the Misk Prospector. There's the Argo Mole, which is multi-crew mining, has 3 different Wait. Oh my gosh. Does a mole have 2 mining lasers? Is it 3? I'm brain farting now. 3 mining lasers. Yeah. And room for a pilot, so you can have like up to 3 or 5 people in that ship at once crewing it. Pardon me. Yes, 3 lasers. Thank you, Crumtech. It's been a while since I've mined. But Black Dominion Gaming, there's also the RSI Orion, which is a capital class mining ship, which is going to bring a whole lot more to mining than what we have already. And John Crew actually talked about some of that in last week's SCL. I'm not going to go over that in the SITREP, but for those of you who are interested in the Orion and you haven't watched the Star Citizen Live from last week, he does mention a few things about mining and about how they're going to differentiate that. And it got me kind of excited for mining again when he talked about how it's not just going to be a bigger version of what we already have. And that's going to include drones, because we droned on about drones, Nazeris and I did. Black Dominion says, can I single-handedly run the capital class mining ship? Technically, yes. Will it work well? No. The whole point of capital class mining ship, or of capital class ships and the really large and multi-crew ships in general, is to encourage you to work with others, but you can hire NPC crew. Not a thing yet, probably not going to be a thing anytime soon, but the long-term goal is for you to be able to hire NPC crew who will be able to perform the same sort of base functions that players do. How that's going to work for things like mining, I don't know. But like the Orion, it has drones that they haven't really told us how it's going to work, but the drones on the Orion like are I think are going to be used for moving the drones and the tractor beams for moving asteroids into place for the laser and the cutter to work on it. Black Dominion Games says, Contact, no one I know would shell out a buttload of cash for this kind of game. Yeah, you don't have to shell out a buttload of cash. $45. But the larger ships and the larger scale gameplay is sort of like Star Citizen's version of leveling up. And that's why there's a different tier, there's different tiers of everything. And you go from single seat ship, a single seat miner, to all the way up to capital class miner, where you're working together to do things. But it, if you work your way up to it, you don't have to buy the big ships. There's nothing that says you have to buy the big ships. And a lot of people are actually in for a rude awakening when it comes to, hey, I own a big ship, but I have put no thought into actually crewing it or how I'm going to use it. I just bought it because it looked cool. A lot of people have done that. I have big ships because the multi-crew gameplay is something that I signed up for. This is all I've ever wanted in a game. But I am under no illusions that I'm going to be able to crew my Polaris by myself or be able to super effectively crew it with NPC. But if I can get people together to play with, then to go out and do some of the missions that will utilize a Polaris, or do the work that a Polaris will be utilized for, it's a gameplay, a type of gameplay that we really haven't had in gaming, hardly at all. There are very few instances. Yeah, the mining is a ton of fun. But with the way that the Orion works is, you wouldn't be very effective at mining, and your cost to operate the ship might be higher than your ability to mine by yourself. But with NPC crew, eventually you should be able to solo a large mining ship. They might not be as effective as player crew, but they should be able to do it. We just don't know how that's going to work for things like mining or salvaging. And I don't know if I want to speculate on that, because that's one of those things we just don't have much information on. We should probably do a spectrum pulse or a scanner anomaly on NPC crew. I'm going to write that down. But yeah, mining is a ton of fun. So we talked about the RSI links going into production finally. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and say that that's going to be a Q4 release. Salvage vehicle munching. So the start date for salvage vehicle munching was pushed back from the end of September to sort of the end of October. And that sprint goes, opening it up. Yeah, that goes all the way out to the end of March. So that's going to continue on well into 2023. They're just getting a little bit later start on it than they had planned. The reason they're getting a little bit later start on it is so they actually no, it's probably not the reason. But Salvage Tier 0, the end date has been extended from the end of August to the end of October. So there's another sign that 318 isn't going to be ready for release anytime soon. They're going to be working on this well into October. Salvage is not going to get pushed. Everybody can say, it can still get pushed. I don't think it's going to push it. They're just going to keep working on it until it's ready. We've seen enough of that work already. Because they're doing, they're gonna have a lot of work to get it ready, especially to do the part that interacts with the cargo refactor and creating the actual crates of salvage that appear in your Drake Vulture, your Aegis Reclaimer. We'll skip seated item seat handling, no big deal. Ship CPU. The end date has moved closer. It was initially going out to the middle of March. Now it only goes out to the first week of December. So that's interesting. And the now we're down to the unannounced vehicles. So things that are unannounced. And they have made it clear, both Jake and Jared have made it clear that if it's unannounced, it means that it has not been announced. It isn't, hey, we're working on this ship that we've told you about in secret and we're not telling you about it. If they have told us about it, and it's on, it will be listed and named on the progress tracker. So anything unannounced is something that we don't know anything about. They haven't told us about it. So the first one, and I'm going to pull up all these sprints real quick, so that way we can look at the details of the sprints themselves. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one, the work started at the beginning of April, and let's see, the end date was extended from the middle of November to the middle of December. So to me, that suggests that they're hoping to get this done in time for IAE, and it's probably not going to happen. So it looks like it might be a Q4 release, or one of those things where they release it IAE, but it isn't flyable until the Q4 patch. They've done that before. I think they did that with a mole, now that I remember it. But it's part-time work from the EU vehicle content team. The vehicle feature team just finished up their short sprint. There's a short sprint for US vehicle content in September, as well as audio in September. I would be willing to bet they'll add a narrative sprint in early Q4 to go with that, and maybe VFX, maybe not. This is probably either a ground vehicle because it's such it's not a lot of work, or it's a variant. So keep an eye on that as a potential Q4 release, new unannounced vehicle. There's another one, the second one. Yeah, that one's a weird sprint because the only thing on there is VFX. And so I think that this is something, there are concepts and there are ships that they worked on before the advent of the progress tracker, before we even had the progress tracker to see this stuff. And this could be one of those ones that they've already done work on, and now they're picking back up later. But all it is a couple week VFX sprint in July. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that sprint and see if more stuff gets added to it later. The third one is, it says end date has been extended from middle of September to November 24th. Vehicle feature team was assigned, adding 13 days of work. So that one, that sprint started mid-February with the EU vehicle content team. Audio work is ongoing right now, ends mid-September. US vehicle content has a short sprint through October, and then vehicle feature team is in November. And so I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see some more downstream work, maybe VFX and a narrative sprint. But I wouldn't be, that probably could be our straight to flyable new concept for IAE. There is also the last one. Let's see what it says. The vehicle content EU freed up 28 days of work, and that probably means that the start date for that sprint got pushed back. It was a vehicle concept art did a sprint starting in July going into mid-August, and EU vehicle content is putting whatever this vehicle is into production end of October, beginning of November, but it goes out to mid-March. So those mid-March sprints are those tricky ones where We don't know if it really goes out to mid-March or if it's meant to go to the end of March. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But that's a new concept that is going into production. So we'll see we'll see when that actually releases. That could be something large, could be something small. We don't know any better. But that is it for the highlights of the Shiny Tracker update. Now, and I didn't go through everything. I went through the things that I thought are the highlights, the things that you guys would want to hear about. I didn't cover everything. And there, let's go back up to the top. There were 52 deliverables that were updated. And the 4 that were added that were on the Roadmap Roundup. So if you want to see all the details to all the deliverables, go to shinytracker.app, Shiny Tracker, common spelling, and go to the Delta tracker and open that up and just scroll on through it. It's a really handy dandy tool. We'll put a link. I'll put a link in the show notes description for whenever this makes its way to YouTube. But the link for the show notes will also be in there, so you can see that. We usually make a Google Doc for all this stuff. And last but not least, for this stream, we're just going to go ahead and do a few SITREPs. Let's see. Crowntax says, if you love mining and don't own a throttle or other analog lever arm control, having that control makes mining so much more fun than trying to use the mouse wheel. Yeah, the mouse wheel is not the most intuitive way to do it. And I actually do it. I have 2 twin sticks. They're just T16,000s, but they've got the sort of throttle control thing on the bottom, which isn't great, but I think it's better than the mouse wheel, at least in my opinion. And then you also asked, is the ship CPU item you mentioned earlier related to the recent work they did on relay nodes in the Hammerhead? I think so. I think it is. I'm going to open up another deliverables tab really quick. So CPU and yeah, I think that work is related to resource. I think the initial part of resource stuff is going to be the power relays, as well as the atmospheric controls. But this is the CPU is for implementing computer blades, but I think that those will be integrated as part of the resource system. I don't know for certain. The blades and CPUs was something that Nazeris talked about a while back, so he's the guy who is a bit more knowledgeable on those. But the resource system is what will be allowing for physicalized components and making those components actually do stuff. It's all part of the same system, and CPUs are part of the component system. Drink water, everybody. Hydrate. Let's hope the CPU work also enables some kind of data running gameplay. Let's read the description real quick. Designing and implementing computer blades for ships includes various blades that can be used to modify or improve certain aspects of a ship's functionality, such as unlocking more complex targeting abilities. I think the CPU is separate than the data storage. At least I'm assuming so. Kind of like how our computers, you have a processor that does things, and if you upgrade your processor, it can, process more things. But you have data drives for storage. And I think the data drives are going to be components that are separate. Don't quote me on that because I haven't looked at it too much. It just seems like the calling it CPU and using it for data running and data storage, it seems a little bit confusing. But you could use ship CPUs for doing things related to data running. I don't think that there are any details on that, but I don't see why you wouldn't have CPUs tailored towards, like, say, data transmission or decryption. You could buy, maybe you have a data, you have your MSR, and you've got those server racks with all the data storage in them, and that's where you store your data. But you need, if you want to decrypt information faster, you need to have these, certain CPUs. But that makes it, by using your CPUs for that instead of maybe a CPU geared towards engine tuning, you don't get as much speed out of your MSR because it's meant to be fast. That sort of thing. The player agency, the choice, going back and forth on it. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that. I think that's something we're going to be seeing more of alongside the resource management in the next couple months for sure. So going on to the SITREPs, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's more 4 with a couple, like 2 that are supporting info. So the first one is related to drones. And this is one of the first questions that were answered in the Star Citizen Live last week. In the show notes, I have links with timestamps to all these questions getting answered. If you go to the Star Citizen Live and you scroll down, usually like the first comment under these Q&As, it's usually like the same guy. Anyway, this person always goes in and puts in the comments timestamps to the individual questions or individual topics getting discussed. And so I will watch it initially, and then I'll go back and rewatch it and rewatch specifically the things that I'm interested in. So I've got a timestamp related to drones. And they asked, are drones being worked on? What's the status of drones for the ships that use them? John Crews said the short answer, nothing in particular to talk about. The long answer, though, is that there are multiple scenarios in Squadron 42 in side missions that make you, he said mostly or mainly in side missions that make use of drones. So it's on the vehicle feature team schedule in the near future for a light-wet IFCS, intelligent flight control system, for drones that is remote controlled, that will be the foundational aspect of drones in the PU. So we know that as part of the work on the Hull C, they are doing work on the remote stations for using the remote tractor beams. And so I can imagine that these remote stations will, with the new UI that they're setting up for them, will be very similar. Will use a lot of the same foundational tech that they'll be using for operating drones. And the reason, sorry, pardon me. The reason this is a SITREP because recently we did our great big segment for our episode called Droning On About Drones. So let's pull up we'll go to teams and we'll go to vehicle feature team. Right? He said vehicle feature team. So vehicle feature team, scroll down, deliverables. It could be they've got a sprint for Squadron 42 vehicle support, where they've got 7 engineers working on that sprint part-time. And it says polishing and iterating on various vehicles needed for the Squadron 42 single-player campaign. There's those are unannounced vehicles. I don't think it would be under unannounced, though, because we know about drones. I wonder if it's something that they have yet to be added to their schedule. Yeah. Because I don't see anything that says drones under their schedule. But John Crews said on the vehicles feature team schedule in the near future. So maybe it just needs to be added because vehicle feature team. Oh, where did it go? Did I close the... Oh, yeah. Vehicle feature team is an upstream team. So maybe it'll be getting added to their schedule, in the not too distant future. We'll just have to wait and see. Keep an eye out for drones on there. But that's all the news that we have for drones for from the Star Citizen Live Q&A, all vehicle Q&A. Next is modularity. And so, someone just asked about an update on modularity, what's going on with it. And the long and short is the vehicle tech team was supposed to work on it. Now they are the Arena Commander feature team. So obviously the working on modularity wouldn't be part of the remit for the Arena Commander feature team. So modularity was transferred to the vehicle feature team, which has had a lot of changes to their schedule recently. EUPU is currently working on resource management, and resource management should allow for the tech for modularity. So one of the issues with modularity, and from the previous update that we did with it, that included information from a previous Q&A, is that one of the challenges with modularity was making it so that when the modules are swapped out, the item ports within the modules change as well. And it was an issue with the object containers within vehicles. And John Crew had said that the people that worked on the object containers for vehicles were working on persistent entity streaming, server meshing stuff, object container streaming things. And so once they got done with that work, then they could work on the stuff to enable modularity. So that way, when you pull out your, Retaliator torpedo module, it brings the item ports for the torpedoes with it, and they are coupled to that module, not to the ship itself. And that way, you don't have torpedoes, sitting in the laps of your troops in the dropship module for the Retaliator. And so what this is saying is that the work on resource management will allow for modularity, because the resource management is updating, essentially going to be updating the vehicle object containers with those changes. Because the other thing is, when you put in a module, that module is going to need to be connected to the rest of the ship for the resources that go into that module, be it power, be it control stations, the room system, the atmospheric change system, and so that's why the work on the resource management system is going to allow for modularity. So how soon can we see modularity? Really no idea, because we don't know at what phase of resource management modularity will be implemented. But they did say that the ship, the Retaliator, which is the first ship for modularity, it's going to be pioneering modularity. The assets are still there. They've worked on the assets. They're in good shape. It's just waiting on the tech. So at some point in the life of resource management, modularity will become a thing. So that's a good thing. The whole C, and if you watch or listen to the podcast, you're like, why the whole C? What's interesting about the whole C? Why is it getting a SITREP on that? Because the whole C has vehicle tractor beams, remote ones, and I did a segment that I called "She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy," and so we know that vehicle. Let's open it up. Deliverables, vehicle tractor beams. So vehicle tractor beams, the weapon content team worked on some of that already. And we saw concept art of the vehicle of one of the tractor beams. I'm brain farting about which one, in front of a 315P, which is actually supposed to have a tractor beam on a utility mount for it. But we saw that back in like October of last year, in a weekly, the weekly newsletter, the sneak peek. But so that's the tractor beams for vehicles is going back into work, but not until the beginning of December. and the sprint goes out to the end of March. And so they say about the whole C, from the art design side, it's pretty close to being complete. We've put a lot of effort getting it up to standard and metrics. And I forget the name of the dev who was on SCL last week with John Crew. He says a couple of artists are just finishing it off. So that correlates with what we saw for the changes to the dates and the sprint for the whole C. And to me, this signals that the whole C is probably going to release an IAE. It's not going to release with its tractor beams. It's going to release with as part of the cargo refactor. And the containers are probably going to poof into existence on the whole C. But then when vehicle tractor beams get implemented and they do more work, continuing work on the cargo refactor, is when the cargo loading and unloading for it will get implemented probably sometime. I would say middle of next year would probably be a pretty safe bet. So, but that's what we have to go on the whole C. I know that there's a bunch of fans of the whole C in the communities that I'm in, and so they'll probably be pretty excited to see the update to the sprint for the whole C. I'm looking forward to seeing it because it's a big cargo ship. It's the biggest cargo ship we will have had. And it's got a lot of interior space. I'm looking forward to seeing what the interior looks like and watching that transition of it expanding and contracting like the whole A, but on steroids. And they did such a good job with the whole A interior. I'm looking forward to seeing the whole C interior. So someone asked about the 600i rework. Why 600i rework, you ask? Also, modularity. They didn't mention anything about modularity for when they were talking about the 600i rework. The only thing I can assume is that it's going to be farther out than the Retaliator. Probably won't come with the Retaliator unless it goes into production, because they said that it's just reconcept. They did the reconcept. John Crew said it looks pretty sweet. The reconcept is pretty much complete. They might be showing off that reconcept work at the upcoming event we can't talk about, so CitizenCon. But there's no one actively working on it right now. It's not in production. It's just they've completed the reconcept phase. Hiccup. That's annoying. Drink water, everyone. Hydrate. We're almost 2.5 hours into the stream. If you are still here, thank you for hanging out with me and being a part of this. I appreciate all the interaction from the stream and lots of good questions and several new followers. So I'm really stoked. I really appreciate it, guys. The Apollo. We talked about the what happened to the Apollo. We poured one out for our homie, the RSI Apollo. And like John Crew, like we saw in the progress tracker, John Crew said it was going to start last month, but the vehicle content team is finishing the Corsair, which we saw the end date for that got extended out to November. The Apollo may be the next one for the team, no guarantees. He said that it may be the next one for the team, but they did adjust the sprint. It's still showing it starting in January. So I think that decision was made, but maybe it was, maybe he forgot about it. I'm not sure. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. The thing with the Apollo is, I think the Apollo will come with the, there we go. I think the Apollo will come with the next big iteration on medical gameplay. And the next iteration of medical gameplay, I will probably coincide with the actor status tier 2. And that sprint starts at the beginning of January for the active feature team, goes the end of March. So obviously it's probably going to continue well into 2023. But actor status tier 2 looks at a variety of new elements such as hygiene, NPC status tracking, multiple bites, so like taking multiple bites out of your torpedo burrito, DNA integrity. So that DNA integrity being related to your imprint, I believe. Your DNA. If you've regenerated too many times, or if your imprint isn't very good, and then you regenerate, maybe it affecting the integrity of your DNA. Medical insurance. So you're gonna need insurance, just like you have for your ship. You're gonna need insurance for your character to cover medical expenses, like regeneration and imprinting. Cybernetic limbs, super cool. That's part of medical gameplay. If you take a serious injury to your leg and it can't be fully healed, they'll replace it with a cybernetic limb, or it's a cybernetic limbs and cloning. So they're probably going to be able to clone you a new leg and reattach it. But there'll be pros, cons for cybernetics versus cloning, you know cost, abilities, that sort of thing. So it'll be really interesting to see all those things when they come out. But I think the Apollo will release with those, along with a few other things. I imagine we will see medical gameplay, because let's see. What do they call it on the release view? I'm going to pull up 315 real quick. So 315. Yeah. Healing. Yeah. Tech healing tier 0. So when we get healing tier 1, I think, along with actor status tier 2, is when they'll try to time the Apollo's release for those things. Blizzard says, I wish so badly they would give us nails so I can torpedo burrito people across the verse. Yes. I want to make my enemies into the gooey filling within a nail torpedo burrito, and launch people down to the surface, but to remove those, they use the G-force stuff that's in the Hornet. The G-force mitigation tech that's in the Hornet in lore is what's used, or like a modified version is what's used in the nails. I want to take the G-force mitigation stuff out of it, put the person in it, in the nail, and it's like it would be the space version of walking the plank, instead of just spacing someone out in airlock. No, that's not dramatic enough. I want you to be just absolutely slowly squished in your your nail, from the G forces, and then when you hit the surface, just go splat, and be able to see it coming. Yes, prisoner torpedoes, beware evildoers. Yeah, contact +1. But yeah, so that's where we are on the Apollo. Mention that because the Apollo has drones. Even John Crew says sort of. So we will see if drone gameplay for the PU gets worked on in the near future, and if it ends up being a part of the Apollo's release, or if that's something that gets added later. The other thing is the Crucible is still on the progress tracker. Yes. Look it up real quick. Make sure it didn't change. I always have to make sure I check things before. Yeah. Because the Crucible is still scheduled to go into production, or reconcept starting in October, and then go in production in Q3 and Q1 2023. And the Crucible has drones. So we just got to keep an eye on it. I don't think we're going to see anything for drones until at least first half of next year, probably. At least for the PU side of actually getting put into production for the PU, not just one-off side mission stuff for the for Squadron 42 from the vehicle feature team. The last but not least, SITREP. And again, this is just reiterating on what we already talked about for modularity, but someone asked about the retaliator. And we know that they Retaliator is in waiting, but what they said is they did a decent amount of work getting it up to scratch in relation to the standards and metrics as well as visuals. So because they did this work recently, and they showed it in an ISC, I want to say it was fall last year, maybe it was earlier. Um, and the images were also put into the subscriber vault. But I think they showed us the interior too. So what they were doing is they when they say up to standards and metrics, they made it so that way the passages and the doors are able for NPCs to walk through and get around each other. They made it so that way you can carry things through them like a component that you're replacing. They made it so it has component bays where you would be doing the resource management and the engineering and repair gameplay. What they did is they took the top and bottom airlocks and removed them and put it on the side, with the circular airlock tube, and put the lift in the center of that entryway room in order to make all those work. And they said they didn't really have to do anything. They didn't have to get bigger, but there is some exterior work that needs to be done just to bring it up to standard. It's more that's just for visual stuff, for visual fidelity. But they just have to also tweak a few things to account for the new docking collars and the lifts. But they did say that it didn't get any bigger. They just had to move things around a little bit and make room for the components and for NPCs and for walking through with crates. So really and this was that gold standard work that was done for it, that was kind of in conjunction with the work that they got started on for the modules and for modularity. And so when the Retaliator does get its modularity, I think that the Retaliator will also be brought up to gold standard. And the Retaliator actually has 3 sprints right now. The Retaliator Gold Standard, which was from beginning of January last year to the beginning of July last year. The Retaliator Room OC, which is Object Container Swapping, was February of last year to June last year, which is them getting Object Container Swapping modularity working for what Squadron 42 designers need it to do. But not ready for the PU because of persistent entity streaming and the ship object containers. But so that work is done. And they've got a little bit of exterior work left to do. But I think that exterior work is going to be included as part of the work done for the Aegis Retaliator base, which goes into production in the beginning of January. And the Aegis Retaliator base variant is, I believe it comes with just the cargo modules to start. And you can get the torpedo modules, the dropship modules, the living quarter modules. I forget all is included. But so, yeah, I think that with the Retaliator base going into production, I think it's going to continue past the end of Q1 2023. But when the Retaliator base finishes, I think that they will release the gold standard, their gold standard for the Retaliator, both the base and the bomber, as well as modularity. I think it's going to all come at once. That's my prediction. You can take that to the bank. But that is all I have for this special, different, modified version of the Pathfinders podcast. Thank you guys. If you were here live with me and hung out with me in chat, I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed it. When Nazeris recovers from his migraine, I'm going to have him help me set up the OBS so that way we can transition to a different scene where we can have stuff on screen that I can show you so you can see it on the YouTube as well instead of just me talking. And and hopefully I don't trigger another migraine with my incompetence in this stuff, getting it set up. But that's the goal, is so that way either he's hosting it or I'm hosting it. When we're talking, we can transition to the other scene. We'll have a screen in the a separate screen on screen that will, for an overlay that will show you, hey, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're showing you. We can either play YouTube videos, select that way when we do the sit reps, I can just create a clip for the stuff that I talked about for modularity, and I can play it for you. You can watch and listen to it, and then we can talk about it afterwards. That's the goal. We're just slowly iterating on this, to improve the production value and the fidelity, the immersion in the Pathfinder experience. But yeah, we're getting there, and thanks again, Blizzrad. I appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully Naz feels better. Cromtac, salute, sir. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys in Astropub's Discord. Oh, last but not least, I am almost done. I'm done hardware-wise with setting up my dual PC streaming setup. I haven't streamed gaming wise on because I've only had the desktop, and it was just too much of a pain to stream and try and interact with chat and be alt tabbing in and out of the game to talk with people, or using my phone or something. And so I just didn't want to do it. But now that I've got my here, you guys, I'm going to pick up the camera, and you guys are going to bear with me for the unprofessionalness of this, but I'm going to show you what things look like. So there, we've got my laptop over here off to the right. That's my streaming PC. And you can see I've got another keyboard over there and mouse. I've got the stream up on there live right now, just so I could watch things more easily, the actual playback. And then, sweet, I've got one stick. I've got my right monitor where I've got OBS and everything going on, my main monitor, and everything. And I got a Elgato. This is the HD60X, I think it is. And so I got that hooked up, and I've got it. I've been working on my. Pardon me while I put this back. Don't mind my double chin. And so I've got the source plugged into my scenes for streaming with the HD60X. The last thing I have to figure out is getting the audio from my mic and my computer, like the gaming audio, to pass through from the HDMI cable into the HD60X and then into OBS. So that way when I stream, OBS on my my streaming laptop. The other thing that's a huge pain in the ass, that's just frustrating to all end, is exporting the scenes that I've already configured on my gaming PC onto the streaming PC, and then moving all the assets for those streams over onto the gaming PC. But then I have to go back into the properties for each one and find the asset and the correct tag, just to make sure the path is right. So it's going to be a little bit of work to get the scenes back up and running on my streaming PC. I have the software installed to. It basically does a software version of what like GoXLR does, simplified, but at least that way I'll be able to game stream or stream while I'm playing, and people will be able to listen, hear the game audio and hear my mic audio. If I'm streaming with other people, hear the Discord audio for chatting and stuff like that. Because the ultimate goal, and I talked about this when I was on Captain's Table with Atira Kell, and Paul hosted us. Thank you again, Paul, for the opportunity. It was a ton of fun. Hope to come back soon. But my goal for my stream is to do two things. I've got two accounts. My main account, I applied to join the lore org, Paul's org. And so I applied to join that, so I can provide medical support and dropship support to the relic hunts. But my goal for that character, besides playing with the lore crew, is to I want to do the guide system. I'm going to make a sort of lesson plan for people new to Star Citizen to help them have a better new player experience, and to just coordinate guide sessions. So, hey, you want a guide? I'll guide you on this day, this time. We're going to stream it, and I'll meet up with you here. And here's the lesson plan, and we'll go through it, and I'll get you started in Star Citizen. Help you run some missions and figure things out, avoid bugs. Show you how to do stuff. Keybinds, all that, hints, tips, tricks, and then at the end. Basically give the person that I'm guiding a UEC bonus. Hey, thanks for joining me on stream and let me help you learn. Here's 100,000 UEC to get you started. That's what I want to do with my main, and then my alt, I want to do 0 to hero streams, and all I have is a Pisces package. So that's the plan for my stream. My work schedule won't let me. It won't allow for me to do Mondays and Wednesdays or anything, because I've got a rotating schedule. But I'll just put out announcements ahead of a week in advance. The plan is to stream, do 0 to hero this Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, and Saturday we're gonna join up with lore. Or Saturday I've got a guide stream set up with this person, so that way you can watch on stream, and you can help me help others. We want people to have a good experience with Star Citizen and be a part of the community, but also join me on the lore adventures with Paul and the rest of the crew from the Astropub Discord, as well as doing 0 to hero stuff, starting from the ground up and working my way up. My 0 to hero count is going to be a smuggler, because that's just the way I play. That's my favorite thing to do in Star Wars Outer Rim, is be a smuggler, whether I play as Lando or Han. It's just it's cargo running, but spicy. And so I enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to more smuggling opportunities in Star Citizen. So yeah, if you have already given me a follow, I really appreciate it. If you haven't already followed me, give me a follow, so that way you get notifications when I'm going to be streaming. I'm hoping that I can have the scenes set up. Pardon me. I'm hoping that I'll have the scenes set up on my streaming PC, and the audio stuff set up and working by the end of this week. Or let's see. What's the date? Oh yeah. So maybe by the end of this week, I go back to work on Sunday, and I get back from work the following Saturday, because I've got some training to do while I'm in New Mexico. And so the week of September the 4th will probably be the first week that I get to do some actual live streams playing games. And I won't just be doing Star Citizen, probably mainly Star Citizen on a more regular basis. But another type of game that I'm really interested in, that I really enjoy, is co-op shooters, both first person, but also the third person or overhead twin stick style shooters. And I've got a bunch of those downloaded from Steam. They're a ton of fun with a group of 3 to 4 people. So if you play pardon me, Deep Rock Galactic, or if you are interested in the games that you're doing twin stick overhead shooters against swarms, that sort of stuff. There's a handful of games that are pretty cheap on Steam that I really want to stream with others. And so if you would be interested in playing those games, and joining me on the stream to play those games and just have some crazy antics, let me know. I'm going to also be opening up a Discord so that way we can get those sort of things together. Cromtax says, you and Paul are going to be a fun smuggling duo to watch. Yeah, that is my... that is definitely something I'm really looking forward to, especially going on the relic hunts with all the military relics. I'm just all about collecting all those. I want to make an in-game shadow box for my 6th platoon and Tavaran War relics. Danny Discharge Tarkov stream featuring Dan. I know people want to see it. Oh, wait a minute. Is this Danny Discharge? Are you from our um from our Bar Citizen Boise on Saturday? Ah, dude, welcome. Hey, so Cromtac, Othmion, anyone else who's still in chat, we're wrapping this up. But Danny Discharge is a friend of Pumpkin Furies. They work together. And so he joined Pumpkin Fury, came to our Bar Citizen, even though he doesn't play Star Citizen yet. Um, but yeah, he's a big time gamer. We played Star Wars Outer Rim together. Definitely looking forward to hanging out with. Dude, I apologize. I already forgot your significant other's name. I'm terrible with names. But tell her I said hi. Had a ton of fun hanging out with you two guys. Looking forward to doing it again. But yeah, dude, I would totally... Wait. Yeah, okay. Yes, Tia. But yeah, I would be totally down to Tarkov stream with you. Get a group together, because Tia plays with you too, right? Yeah, if I remember the conversation correctly. I'd be down to Tarkov with you. You just have to go easy on me, and because it's been a while since I Tarkoved, like a hot minute. But yeah, no, I'd definitely be down to Tarkov with you. I will Tarkov with you if you twin stick shooter with me. Deal? We'll take turns, because there's a handful of super fun ones that are a lot of fun to do with like 3 or 4 people. But yeah, there's one that's called Helldivers that I really enjoy. Red Solstice 2 is a really awesome one, and The Ascent. So Atira Kell, who is on the captain's table with me, with Paul, he's been playing The Ascent. The Ascent is a pretty cool top-down game, really cool art style. I'd be interested in streaming that one as well. But those are the things I want to stream besides Star Citizen. But yeah, Danny, thanks for joining me. This is towards the end of the stream, but I appreciate you hopping in and giving me a follow. And yeah, we will. If you're not already in the Bar Citizen Boise Discord, make sure you get joined up in there, so we can connect more. And I'll look forward to hanging out in person again soon. But we'll definitely have to set up some streams, or even if we're not streaming, just getting online and playing together. The hard thing for me is like all my best friends back home that I would game with back in the day, they're all dads now, and so they don't hardly game at all, and trying to get a gaming session together with them is next to impossible. Whereas my kid is not even 9 months old and he sleeps like a champ. So I've got evenings to do stuff, but no one to play with. So that's why I want to do stuff with the lore org, and do some Zero to Hero and guide streams, as well as do stuff like Tarkov and co-op shooters, that sort of thing. So unless you guys in chat have anything else to add, that is it for the show tonight. We went a full 3 hours, and I really appreciate you all. And I will see you in the next one, hopefully with Nazeris, sans migraine, and hopefully with him sans migraine, we will the stream will go as smoothly as I think this one did. Make sure my camera is working right. All right. You guys have a great night. Thanks again. Love you all. And have a good work week because it's Monday for all you normal folks. Goodbye now.